perhaps the topic that is to elicit the most fierce, passionate, and forceful emotional debates in this country, in the United States, has to be the abortion issue. And I look at this issue, and I'm going to talk about this in the next two videos in this Stupid America series. Because I look at this issue, and I look at the pro-life side, and I say, what a bunch of hypocrites. I look at the pro-choice side equally, and I say, what a bunch of idiots and hypocrites. It astounds me. Today, my focus is going to be on the hypocrisy of the pro-life side by and large, and of the pro-life movement, and how their beliefs on the issue of abortion in no way, shape, or form are consistent across the board into other things that you would assume to be pro-life type of issues. Now, here's my thing. Pro-lifers believe that abortion is bad, that abortion is fundamentally wrong. They don't like it. They believe it is against God's will. They equate it in some ways to murder because you are basically killing an unborn human. You're not giving that fetus the choice of whether or not they're brought into the world. You're taking that choice away from them. And in a lot of ways, I do agree with the pro-lifers in the sense that, to me, abortion is stupid. And I don't particularly like it. And I think that it is a cop-out and an excuse, except in the extreme cases like the rape, the incest, and, health of the mother. But in general, I think it's a get-out-of-jail-free card for a lot of people in this country in terms of their lack of accountability, especially coming from both a male and a female standpoint. Far too often we take the easy way out far too often. However, what I don't get with the pro-life side is you're pro-life. You believe every life begins at conception, and you believe that every baby is beautiful and that every baby deserves to be born and be able to live life. But it seems like afterwards, that's where the focus on being pro-life ends. And my thing is if you're pro-life, shouldn't you be pro-life consistently across the board from the time of conception until all the way at the time of end of life and death? Something doesn't match up here, because here's what I don't understand. People, and this tends to be true, it's not a true thing in every single case, but by and large, most people recognize this to be true. People that tend to support pro-life positions in terms of banning abortion, reducing the freedoms of abortions, rights to choose, what have you, they tend to support reductions in the social safety nets that would be required for all of these additional babies that would be born if we didn't have the abortion system in place currently. Again, it's not just about a baby being born, and that's where the pro-life part ends. There's an entire life left to live. And all of these people that tend to be so against abortion and so pro-life tend to oppose the things that would be necessary in order to ensure a quality of life for so many of these kids that were aborted for one reason or another. They support reductions in welfare. They support reductions in food stamps and other social safety nets that would be required to help provide those children with some form of quality of life, especially in their early formative years when they didn't have a choice into what type of life they came into. So many people that are so pro-life and view abortion as murder, view capital punishment as being okie dokie because they're criminals and they had their chance and they made their choices and now they made their bed and they can lie and it's 6 feet under the ground. Isn't murder murder? And you could sit there and talk about biblical shit in terms of an eye for an eye and all of that garbage. But at the end of the day, how can you be so pro-life in terms of protecting a baby's life, yet at the same point in time not bat an eye and be perfectly fine with ending another human's life? I thought it was one of those things that God was supposed to be the ultimate judge. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Well, if you are in favor of capital punishment, if you are in favor of taking another human's life, wouldn't you be doing the same thing that you were supposedly rallying against from an abortion standpoint? Why are so many pro-lifers in favor of foreign wars that kill tons of our citizens, kill tons and tons and thousands of other citizens, including women, children, and unborn babies? How can you sit there and say you are pro-life if you are in favor of our country invading other countries and engaging in long foreign wars where you know eventually civilians are going to be killed, including women, young children, and unborn children at that? Again, being pro-life is not just about preventing abortion and that is it. pro-life has to be something, to me, that you have to be consistent across the board. And pro-lifers, by and large, tend to support a constitutional amendment banning abortion, even though, to me, technically, you really don't see anything one way or another pertaining to the Constitution addressing abortion in any way, shape, or form. They are for a constitutional amendment banning abortion. They're not for, this or that. They're for this. But on the flip side, you look at the things that the pro-lifers oppose. They supposedly value life and are pro-life, but they oppose, by and large, any new measures or gun control laws meant to keep bad weapons and things that can kill people out of bad people's hands who could use those weapons to kill people. How could you be pro-life here but be against any restrictions that potentially prevent guns getting into the bad hands of bad people? So many of these pro-life people also oppose quality universal health care measures, in particular for children, making sure that all of these people, and kids in particular, that weren't aborted, that were brought into this world, actually had a chance at life and got the same quality of health care that they didn't have a choice over one way or another that everybody else did. How can you be pro-life and you oppose quality universal health care for all? Seems to not wash there. Seems to be very hypocritical to me. How can you sit there and be so pro-life and so anti-abortion, yet not want to do anything to really affect any positive change to prevent this from even becoming a problem to begin with? Teaching abstinence in schools. Let's get tuned into reality here. My parents' generation was fucking before they were married. Their generation was fucking before they were married. This has been going on since the dawn of freaking time. So to sit there and pretend that all of a sudden that we teach abstinence and give kids lollipops instead of a blowjob and everything is okie dokie isn't addressing a damn thing. We are not dealing with the problem. You have so many people that are pro-life that are opposed to sex education in schools. They're opposed to giving birth control in schools. They're opposed to other preventative pregnancy measures to ensure that we don't have people that shouldn't be having kids getting pregnant, so that way they make the decision to have abortions to begin with, because these type of things promote sexuality and this and that. No, if anything, to me, it makes sure that we are actually dealing with the reality of the times, and it is making sure that we're preventing babies from being conceived that are eventually going to be aborted and, in my opinion, yes, frankly, murdered. It's time to stop being so goddamn naive. If you don't want the abortions to happen to begin with, why not do the things that would actually prevent some of them from occurring? And the other thing to me that astounds me with pro-lifers, they want a constitutional amendment banning abortion. They think this and they think that. But the consistency in the enforcement of the Constitution is very lax and lacking. A lot of these pro-lifers supported George W. Bush, who crammed the Patriot Act through Congress in the heels of 9/11. These are the same pro-lifers that, like I said again, they support foreign wars. They support capital punishment. But they don't support the defense of our First Amendment rights and our Fourth Amendment rights and our Fifth Amendment rights, and seem to support torture and enhanced interrogation tactics, these things that would seem to be fundamentally un-American. America. The bottom line is to me, if you're going to be pro-life, then you need to be pro-life from conception until death. You can't sit there and say, I'm pro-life until the baby is born, and then, fuck it, you're on your own. You can't sit there to me and say, I'm against murder, and then advocate murder via capital punishment and foreign wars. You can't sit there and say you support a constitutional amendment banning abortion and say you believe in the Constitution, when at the same point in time, you clearly can see that your belief in the consistent enforcement of the law of the land, which is the United States Constitution, is very laxing. You have a lack of belief in the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and the Fifth Amendment in particular. I'm just saying. To me, it's hypocrisy at its worst. It is, we do this because this, is the sexy thing to do, but the other things that would actually coincide with this, the other things that would actually make us consistent across the board and actually make us pro-life, those aren't as cool. Those aren't as sexy. And I just don't get it. Only in stupid America could people say they were against abortion and claim they were pro-life, and yet oppose so many other things that would actually indicate that they are pro-life. Because again, life, you may believe, begins at conception, but life doesn't end at birth. And the people that are pro-life should get this through their thick fucking skulls. Stupid hypocrites. The next video in this series, I'm going to talk about the pro-choice people and just how fucking hypocritical they are, too. Later.